You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and just like any other time, we have another special guest. Today, we have a true honor talking to Lady Dr. Dhyana Ziegler. She's the author of the book that I suggest you should go check out. It is Midnight Train from Georgia. It's a life and legacy of William Guest, and she is going to share with us not just the story about that, but everything that is in detail about his life. I'm so happy to have the honor to have her on the show today. I know she's super busy. She's literally out of town and still being committed to do the interview. So I appreciate her time, spending some time with us today. So first and foremost, I want to say to you, Dhyana, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. And let me say thank you for the invitation. I'm honored to be here.
Well, I know you have a lot that you can talk about for yourself because you have a very powerful resume and portfolio, and from a professional standpoint, truly amazing. And I understand that you want to focus on telling the story of the great, and rest in peace to the one, the subject of today's story, William Guest. He is someone that people should know, especially when it comes to rich music history in Motown. I'll let you have the floor and have the honors. Kind of educate our audience, lay down the foundation of why his story is so important to know.
Well, first of all, it is a coming of age story. Just in the short term of kids who had a dream, family, faith, and love. A lot of people probably do not know that the group they know as Gladys Knight and the Pips is not the original group. The original group started with 5 kids. Gladys Knight, her brother Bubba Knight, her sister Brenda Knight, my brother-in-law William Guest, and his sister Eleanor Guest. They were raised in Atlanta, Georgia, in the church. So it really started at Mount Moriah Baptist Church. But even before they started singing as kids as a group, my brother-in-law would say, and I call him Babe Bruh, so you'll hear me go from William to Babe Bruh, but he would say that he started music from being probably singing and dancing because his family, his grandmother, his mother, his father, and his uncle, they sang on the back porch at their house for the neighbors. So the neighbors would gather just to hear the grandmother and the uncle playing the guitar and singing when he was a little boy. In fact, he learned harmony from his grandmother while she was cooking in the kitchen. Eleanor is his sister who was 3 years older than him, but they both grew up in the church. So that foundation of family, spirituality, because they were very, very religious, and the creativity and having this dream is where basically the book starts. Now, because they were all related as distant cousins, when I moved from what they would call the country in Bagley Park to the city in Atlanta, that's where the birth of the group begins, at Mount Moriah Baptist Church. William's mother and Gladys' mother and father, they sang in the adult gospel choir, and the kids started singing in the youth choir. You had a question?
When you look at the relationship that you had with William, you also had an opportunity to interview him, and that was years before his passing in 2017. How did that impact how you were able to put the book together?
Well, first of all, I lived the story. My brother-in-law has been in my life since I was 11 years old. So the journey, when he met my sister, I was 11. So when they came to New York in the Apollo Theater, we were already involved in music. My father was the lead singer for the gospel group. And then my sister and I used to dance. In fact, we all studied dance at Minnesota Community Center with Debbie Allen and all of that, because our arts came from community centers in Harlem. So we were already engaged in music. In fact, it was my mother who knew Bobby Robinson, who became their manager in New York, and actually took my sister to an event to hear them recording in India when they left Atlanta and came to Harlem. And that's how they met back there. So living story, and I'm a journalist, and I'm a broadcast journalist. So having a camera and photography, I was doing that most of my life. In fact, in the early days, I was also the executive vice president for Patton Guest Production, who was Edward Patton and my brother-in-law, William Guest. And I have a music background, too. I had a number one song, Time Moves On, by Group Strut and Record World Disco in 1965, although my life took me on then to become a professor and PhD. So I grew up living this story. In fact, in 1966, when they moved my sister and brother-in-law got married in 1965. They moved to Motown in 1966. In fact, that was the same year that I graduated. So I remember every time I heard it through the grapevine would come play on the radio, my mother used to say, because my sister had one child at that time, Monique has another pair of shoes. So, we lived the story. My brother-in-law, as well as the rest of the Pips, we were just one family. When we got together, I mean, my mother, Mama Knight, we always call each other Mama Guest, Mama Knight, Mama Ziegler. They used to help shop for Gladys dresses. So we all became one family. And I just happened to start maybe 5 or 6 years before his death. Just in every event, I would have a camera, I said. And so I would be taping other things, but I just decided at that time it was to do a documentary, and it wasn't no rush. I thought he would be around for a long time and we could evolve this piece and all of the pieces to make it a full-fledged documentary. And of course, life happens and he passed. But I had more than enough, and I still have enough for a documentary. It's just like putting broadcasting. It's just like putting everything together. But I would need all the other footage that goes along with it. That's, of course, will then entail all these licenses and stuff like that. So people are always asking me, what am I going to do with the footage? Well, I'm going to live for a minute and take it to the next step.
Once again, you're listening and watching us online. I'm Refocus Radio, talking to our guest today, Lady Dr. Dhyana Ziegler. Go to any book store that you can find, Amazon, online, and get the book that we're talking about, The Great Legacy of William Guest. The title of the book is Midnight Train from Georgia. It's definitely something that should be part of history lessons and definitely share with the masses. So I want to say again, thank you for the great work that you're doing with this project. My next question is, you being a creative individual yourself, how did your creative background, journalism, writing, media, and so forth, how did that background kind of position you to make this project in such a creative way, not just, a typical way, but in a special way where you really have some great insight in how things work in the media world?
Well, again, growing up in the business, that's one thing. The other thing is I was writing ever since I was a kid. In fact, people don't believe it because I trained myself to be an extrovert, but I'm an introvert who wrote everybody letters. So my family, they would get letters from me, and my sister and stuff, I would go off by myself. So I was always sort of internal introspecting, looking at things, trying to figure things out. So, the process, by the time I got to my brother-in-law's store, I had written in academic books. It's either you're going to either do it topically or you're going to do it historically. I mixed the two, again, being able to do that as a journalist, and also just taking the popular song Midnight Train to Georgia and putting a from in it, because they left Georgia and came to New York and the Apollo Theater, and then having Marguerite Mays, who was Willie Mays's ex-wife, as manager, and then to bring in Charlie Atkins for the dancing from the Cole and Cole and Atkins group back in the past for tapping and stuff. That's where those precision dance steps came in. Marguerite Mays found them Charlie Atkins and had Charlie Atkins polish up their act. When they went to Motown, Charlie went with them. Charlie not only polished up Gladys Knight and the Pips, but he worked with the Temptations, all the other groups. So, again, we were one family. We lived it. We still had access to all of these people. My brother-in-law was a big personality. So it was very easy to follow him with a camera and get all of these stories. The big thing is, he told stories a lot, but he would tell the stories in different ways. So if there was any challenge, I had the stories 5 or 6 times and had to tell them, in different, and shape it and fashion it with what I lived, and also put some of my own commentary in to explain some parts that were not, too clear from my observation. So I wanted to do that. I've interviewed, Alex Haley was one of my mentors. I had, a big interview with him. So this is what I do. But, when it comes to family, the fashioning and the shaping is different. So I would have to go to Detroit. And some occasions he came down to Florida, for 2 or 3 days, especially towards the end of his life, when it was really important to him that he wanted to leave this rich legacy behind and help young people in the business not make, number one, the same mistakes that they may have made, but also to explain the business and how to sort of just get through the maze of all of the challenges and the temptations that were out there. Because if you think of them, I always call them an apple pie group. There was not a lot of scandal and different things that the entertainment bring on. So there's a spiritual foundation, because a lot of this was couched in faith. They prayed before every performance. This was just the way they did from little kids. So that spiritual foundation, that love, and that they were committed to be the best that they could be, to deliver the best music, to deliver the best entertainment, to the community. And that's what they did.
And history shows the music speaks for itself. Rich legacy. Everyone loves Motown. At least the people I know, they love Motown. And I think it's awesome to always hear the behind the scenes of what it was like, what, they had to go through, the success they obviously had, but the challenges along the way. You mentioned about teaching young people lessons learned. And I think that's very crucial, because a lot of times we're guessing, right? Young people are like, oh, well, how you do this and how did they do that? So that preps up my next question. You spoke about faith. You also highlight the role of family and church with the music of Williams' life. What do you hope that readers will be able to take away from those themes?
Well, that, harmony is a lot more than musical notes. It's a spirituality. It's a coming together. That was their foundation. They had harmony vocally and spiritually. So that was always important to all of them, that they kept that foundation, that they kept that faith. And when he basically wanted to tell the story, because, they were ripped off a lot. They had a lot of challenges back in the 50s and 60s just trying to change through the South. So, but the tenacity that kept them together for 37 years into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that was the glue that kept them together, is that spirituality that was embedded in them from babies. So that was that foundation kept things, I would say, as smooth as they could be in this business, because there's so many temptations out there. And reading the book, and I would be the first to tell anyone with my sister that he was not a saint. He made a lot of mistakes and stuff, and he shared that. And that was the other issue. He wanted people to look at all the temptations. See, the way the music industry is now, you can stream and stuff, and people just get this money. They struggle. Even when they made money and had hit records, they didn't get it because they would say, oh, well, those suits you had or whatever. So a lot of those entertainers during that time, and they even had problems with Motown in the contract, were getting ripped off. They eventually moved to Buddha Records, where the hit Midnight Train to Georgia came, and the Grammy Records and stuff, and eventually getting them into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So that, I would say, the harmony is something important to learn. And again, they had some intuitive things, again, that were a lot of just their background, which was the foundation that never left them, never forgot where they came from. He never forgot where he came from, and he always wanted to give back.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned earlier talking about how they would pray before each performance. Having that type of mindset and having that kind of security in one's faith, do you believe that's why your family, including yourself, have been able to do so many things that the average person will never even probably see happen in their lifetime? Because y'all have truly made not just history, but made a real impact in the music industry and culture.
Right. I mean, even watching them, help me. Like I said, it's been in my life since 11 years old. I mean, he would sit me down as a little girl, I don't ever want to hear. I mean, he did not want us backstage. There was certain things, it was always protection. And he always, lifted up, I became a professor, and, I was also, besides writing music myself, I was in advertising, so I was a copywriter, producer. I'm a producer director. So he always, lifted us up to be whatever we wanted to be, but never put us down when we made mistakes. He would talk to us and learn and contrast his life with what may have happened and create a bridge of understanding where then I would say, okay. And I could still hear voices in the back of my head. He called me little Dada until he died, so, and he would say we were partners, because we could, not only deal with the music and entertainment, but he would sit us all down, and just pour out wisdom based on what the things that they learned on the road and the things not to do, and always be a lady and don't ever want to hear anything, and protected us. It's so funny because all of us, because he was in a car accident and he would sleep. To give you an example, he never allowed us to sleep in any cars. Always be, because he almost lost his life. There were certain things that, some may consider superstitious, and we laugh and stuff, but we used to do it because there was an understanding and he had a connection to a story of why this should not be done or why it would be best to do something another way. So, towards those last 5 years or so, it was really about leaving the wisdom behind for young people. I mean, he was still writing and trying to record an album up until his death. So he never stopped singing. He never stopped playing. And people don't know, early on, he wrote the song Linda and Darling while Gladys went and left the group for a while and had children. And Bubba even said that he kept the group alive with his writing. So he wrote Linda, wrote Darling, but what's important, and I didn't know that until the funeral, when Bubba told us that he put the woo woo and Midnight Train. They did the choreography because they could not find Charlie Atkins and they didn't have enough time. And Bubba told the story about, he says, look, we got to put that in there because people are going to remember that whistle. And it was, so that was one story that we learned, and we thought we knew everything, but we didn't know that until, the funeral. So that was an important piece to learn. And, again, some people will say that he was the best dancer. He tried always to get the steps very precise. I have not seen the dancing that was back there in those days here now, getting those steps and those precisions. I mean, you might see it in marching bands, but I don't see it, on stage. And, it was just a class act all around.
Once again, you're watching and listening to us online. I'll be Focused Radio, talking to our special guest, Lady Dr. Dhyana Ziegler. Go to Amazon anywhere you can get a book and get a copy of Midnight Train from Georgia, celebrating the life and legacy of William Guest. True honor having you on today. I understand the weight of success is not always something easy to carry. And for you and your family to be able to be part of rich history, that's powerful. And not everybody can say they contributed to something as massive when you think of music and media. So I want to ask this question on that note. When you see how much of an impact your family have made and contributed to culture and music, what are some of the responsibilities that maybe William kind of share with you how to sustain success? Because it's one thing to be able to have the privilege to have a platform, but it's another different thing to actually use it in a way that's bigger than yourself.
Well, one of these things I can say ties into my background. That there was an ethics. Character, I would tell my students, character is the one thing that's going to separate you from the crowd. And he taught us character. That foundation of how to be, how to act, throughout the lifetime. I mean, it was a roadmap. So that's sustainability. I remember even in my own challenges in academia. So, I mean, before tenure, full professor, before I got knighted and all that stuff, just the challenges of being a Black woman trying to make it, be successful against all odds, doing things that people didn't necessarily do. You don't always get a look for that. Okay, so that foundation of holding your head up, putting on your best clothes to go in and sit there and smile when you may want to feel a different way, to always sustain that foundation and character. That was a big thing. And that's why I always call them an apple pie group, because it was about character class. And if you see, and my sister has, tried to give that to her kids. Our parents gave it to us. Don't let me hear anything about you out there. And that foundation really helped sustain me and deal with some of the challenges I had to deal with. And I believe that was the string of success, because they never saw the pain. They never saw the challenges. They saw great performances, great entertainment.
And when you mentioned the word character, you also have family wisdom, that especially his grandmother's lessons. How do you believe that also made an impact on his life and his ability to sustain his success in his career?
Well, he was a family man. I mean, when I say that we were one family, if we get together, maybe 40 people in the room. But he loved Mama Tilly. That was her name, Mama Tilly. And again, he loved his mother. He never wanted to disappoint his family. Again, that church foundation. He told stories in the book about him, cutting up in church, and Mama Tilly would just give him that look. Again, when you walk out there, you're not just walking out there as William. You're walking out there as a symbol of the Guest family, a symbol of the Ziegler family, a symbol of the legacy that you want, for your family, and you want to leave a good one behind. So that foundation, and there was a lot of music, there was a lot of love, and there was a lot of laughter. I mean, we always laughed and played music and love. I mean, up until, his death, and my niece and I were the last, two with him, to just get the little out of bed. But even that, what's so important, even about that night, because to show you how important the relationships were. Bubba flew from Vegas to Detroit, got there maybe 3:00 in the morning when they knew that he was in a coma. We don't know what he said to him. He called from the airport, just spent a couple hours and flew right back. But he had that pivot moment. And that's the way we all were, I mean, we couldn't hold on forever, but it was such a good foundation. For me personally, my sister and he got married 3 weeks before my brother passed. He became the brother, the son, and everything that enriched our lives. So he was more, I always say, my brother / brother-in-law, because it was a lot bigger than just being my brother married to my sister, because I never got in between them and their stuff. It was all separate. They dealt with their stuff. That's my sister. That's my brother. But the one thing, they loved each other till his death, in spite of the challenges. And he took us the importance of family. And that was the foundation that he learned from his family, because a lot of our families, sort of disconnected and stuff, but we stay together even now on the Ziegler side, and my cousins and stuff, and the guests. We're all still one family, as well as the Knight children. They're all on Facebook together.
Well, once again, if you're watching us and listening to us online, I'm Refocus Radio. Make sure you get a copy of the book, Midnight Train from Georgia. It's available anywhere you can get a book online. I want to say to our special guests, not only have you really gave us a great life history lesson, but I think it's an important one to recognize the great minds and the great hearts of human beings who actually made a difference in this world. So I want to say thank you for your time and appreciate everything that you and your family have contributed to not just culture, but music as a whole, because that's not easy to do. That is a lot of people today that wish they can have a legacy as rich as that. So just want to say again, thank you for your time to share with us this amazing story.
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.